Today's show is brought to you by Speaking Finance. If you're in the market for a loan, whether it be big and bustling like Andrew Phillips or small and smooth like Tippa, then Speaking Finance can help you out. Our friends at Speaking Finance are currently running a competition so you can win a $150 voucher for the Bomber Shop. If you'd like to get involved, head over to Speaking Finance Facebook page. You'll see the post, answer the question, and follow their page to win. That's Speaking Finance. You'll also see a link on our show post today. All right, everybody, let's get into the show.
I mean, it's nothing new that I'm the one who's carrying this podcast anyway, so
simply must play.
There's nothing more likely than a bloke who takes a hanger, miss and a set shot straight after it.
Yeah, give it a listen.
Acting as if it's like a normal thing to do with salt and vinegar chips.
I'm in a mood, Rob. How is this the little bonus content with Kevin Shady?
Who are we playing this week? Who cares?
I reckon I'm 0 for 3 with creating segments at the moment.
For the love of God, don't those come.
The Dons turned the tables on a decaying Eagles side as we pulled off one of the best wins in recent years. This is The Sash, definitely not the official podcast of the Essendon Football Club. I'm your host, Rob, and we're back on Zoom for another lockdown podcast. I've got Mert here, I've got Damo here, and I've got Oli here. Boys, how are we going?
Pretty bloody good, I reckon.
Lovely, lovely. Good to hear. Merty, how you going?
Yeah, good, Rob. Good. It's, yeah, as we say, it's pretty incredible what a win does for you.
It does. Mondays are a lot brighter. They're certainly a lot brighter. Oli, what do you make of it?
Stoked. Absolutely stoked. You said it at the start, Rob. One of the best wins in recent memory. It's enough. I'm even at the moment, I couldn't give a shit that we're in lockdown. So give me more of that. Ride me through to the flag, and I don't care if you don't see daylight. You can put me in hotel quarantine for the rest of the time.
Awesome. Dan, Damo, how did you see it, buddy?
Pardon?
I said, how did you see it?
Mate, that was bloody amazing. Couldn't be happier. I've been reading every article, watching every highlight video, liking every post on Facebook and Instagram, trying to find more content that I haven't gone over since. Just rewatched the first half before. Oh, give me more. I'm worried for our supporter base because we're all just falling in love way too much with this team.
Yeah, you are right. Have you been on Don's Reddit today? Did you get that deep?
I actually got that deep last night. There wasn't too much out there. I was a bit disappointed. So I might have to start posting for one.
There we go. Shout out to everyone on Don's Reddit. I'd like to start here by discussing the season expectations. So the start of this season, Mert, you said we'd finish bottom 2. Damo, you said bottom 4. I said bottom 6. Oli didn't show up till about round 8 anyway, so we'll cut him out of this conversation. I'll go to you first, Mert, because you were the pessimist of the three of us. I mean, we're all pretty pessimistic, but of the three of us, at the lowest. Where's your head at right now, considering that initial prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I'll also just preface this, and it's not really an excuse or anything, because I happily wear the fact that I like to stick on that side of things, but I'm very much a believer in the power of the jinx, and I'll never ever say that we're going to be better than what we are. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I think, looking at that team, and I recall this quite clearly, looking at that team that we put up in round 1, and obviously we had a fair few guys out who were even coming into that side at the time. And yeah, I remember looking at it and just thinking, God, I really can't recall a worse Essendon team on paper. And I really couldn't. That was genuinely it. And I think even in the preseason, I think coming out of the draft, I'd really thought that, Cox wasn't going to be the guy who's going to be playing in the first game. I thought Perkins would be the kid who was much more prepared over the other two. Obviously, as it happened, Cox was the one who was playing in that game, and then, the others shortly thereafter. So I think, firstly, we've seen, a lot more out of those kids than we could have probably ever dreamed to this point. And I'll talk about this at another time. I think I think some of the hype around Cox at this stage, given that, the most possessions he's had in a game is 14 possessions. He had 9 on the weekend, and he's got Essendon supporters crying out, asking why he hasn't been nominated. I think that's overstated, and we need to be a bit more realistic about that. But I mean, Archie Perkins was absolutely incredible on the weekend, and it just seems like if even amongst some of those really young kids, and I think people forget about Harry Jones for some reason in that discussion as well, because he's been incredible. But I just kind of feel like at this stage, if one of them, and although they're playing different positions, if one of them is not perhaps having their best game, then the other one seems to be. That's just talking about those kind of first year players, Harry Jones, second year player, but really a first year player. So away from that, I think, it just helps when you've got guys like Darcy Parish playing, the best football we've ever seen from him, actually playing in the position we've wanted him to. Everyone seems to be performing their role. Tippa's in the most consistent form he's ever been in. Paco's incredible. Jaden Laverde is just, for me, Jaden Laverde was our best player on the weekend. And when he's doing that week in, week out, it helps so much. And, it just seems to be happening all over the ground at the moment. And it's a sign of a team, not necessarily that's a great team yet, but it's certainly a sign of a team that things are coming together and they're in good form. And I think you need a number of role players. Every good team has them. If you look at Melbourne now, they've got all these guys playing off their tits. And that's just what you need coming, if you're going to become a good side. So I think that just really helps.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Damo, what about you, mate? Where are you sitting considering the initial predictions?
Yeah, look, I did say bottom 4. And look, I sort of see us in that 11 to 12 sort of range at the moment. I think that's where we'll probably finish up, but who knows how the season will end. But definitely a surprise with how we've gone. I'm sort of also getting a bit greedy. I do want to still get a high pick to bring into this side next year. So finishing around that 13, 12 range, I wouldn't be opposed to. So would love to add another top pick into that team.
I'll ask you this one, Ollie. Obviously, knowing the game that's ahead of us, and we'll get into the review of the West Coast game shortly. But if we cast our eyes ahead to next Saturday against Richmond, basically a game that could put us, properly into the 8.
Yeah.
Do you think we can play finals this year?
I've looked ahead at our fixture, and there's a lot of winnable games there. I think, one of the benefits of how they've structured fixturing these days is that they do it according to what your previous year's ladder position was. So because we're in that bottom 6, we do find ourselves having a second game against some pretty winnable teams. So like your North Melbourne, we're matching up against. Hawthorn is another. So I can count at least 10 wins all up that we can get to. There's going to be a couple contentious ones, more 50-50s that if we can win, for example, like a Sydney at home, there's GWS at home. If we can win those, we're putting ourselves in a position. So I think ultimately we're going to, get around at least the 10-win mark, I would hope, unless there's some sort of a big drop-off, which cannot, we can't say that won't happen. But I would hope that we could at least get to the 10-win mark and, possibly scratch a couple more. And, once you get into that 12 mark, who knows? It depends on the year. You can put yourself in the conversation. So ultimately our fate's in our hand, and it's just an exciting position to be in. And
no, exactly. And I don't think anyone would be upset if we fell short, if we finished 9th or 10th, considering what we've seen thus far. And it's nice to be in a position where, control's in your hands. If we beat Richmond, we're in the 8 and we deserve to be there after beating 2 top 8 sides. Rather than being that position where you're like, if this happens and then this happens and they beat them and you get these results, that's where you want it to be. I think as well, coming into the latter part of the year, that just considering we do have a lot of young names, they will bodies will tire, things will happen, more players will get injured. It's always the way. I do think if you look at our list at this point in time, and obviously no guys can come back later in the year, but I think at this point in time, our list is just about as stretched as far as it can go before it really drops off. We know a Paddy Ambrose could come in and maybe play forward. Obviously, Braden Ham was the sub on the weekend. But then after that, you've kind of got Marty Gleeson and Ned Carl who've played AFL football. And then there really isn't much more after that in terms of guys who are fresh and available to come in. So if we were to get in a worse position and guys aren't coming back as quickly as we'd like, I think we might find ourselves pretty stretched the back half of the year. But, you know, for what we've seen so far, I think we're all pretty happy with the result. So, yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Just on that as well, Rob, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I had lofty expectations after last year's performances and the exodus of a few key players. But the fact is that when you look at our past 3 years, our performances just simply hadn't lived up to what we had expected as supporters. And there are a number of reasons for that. But I think one of the big takeaways then is that, you know, I don't think our time dwindling at the bottom of the ladder was going to be a very, you know, sustained period. Due to, I think, primarily internal growth from players who have taken that next step, like your Jaden Laverdes, and most importantly, Darcy Parish is a player that we would have sold the farm trying to recruit. And now, you know, he's just made this natural progression, just given that he's being played in the position that we recruited him for. So I think there is the potential for us to jump back up the ladder a lot more quickly than a lot of, you know, well-paid pundits would expect. But, you know, with that, we're subject to a lot of vulnerabilities at the back half of this year. I don't think our list is probably performing at its limit at the moment. And, you know, that's to say that we've got heaps of natural improvement in the coming years. But, it's been really pleasing to see so far.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I think we spoke about it probably last year and the year before, where if you know, went and looked at our list and go, who's the core group that will take us to where we want to be next? The core group was a bunch of guys who were probably between the ages of, say, 21 to 26, maybe with a couple of older outliers there. But that was the core group that you're looking at going, these are the guys you want to develop. And, you know, we talked about at the start of the season how few guys had played over 50 games in this team. But that's that group is when they start to hit that window between 50 to 100 games and then ideally, you know, 100 onwards, that's when you see their best footy. And they've been together for a few years. I mean, Mert, you spoke about Melbourne and what they're doing at the moment in terms of all their role players. But one of the things that they've got going really well for them is that there's a group of guys there who've been together for 3, 4, 5 years, most of them. You know, a couple of younger blokes who've come in as well, similar to us, but the core group of them have been together for so long. They know how to play with each other. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they know how to all play those roles. And you can see that unfolding with our side at the moment is that there's a lot of these guys who, you know, might play roles that aren't pretty. They're not super exciting and super flashy, but they get the job done. And that's all we can ask them. So, look, it's exciting times, and it was pretty awesome on the weekend. I'll ask you, Merty, where was your head at in the second quarter when they were 9-0 and we were missing them left, right, and centre?
Yeah, I always thought we were in it. Like, I thought the scoreline really flattered them, really for the whole game. And even at the end, I mean, I think we had, you know, I can't remember how many we had in the last, but we had something like we had over 20 forward 50 entries to, you know, I think it was like 1 or something like that of theirs. So I think that shows you in itself. And you know, we didn't kick straight, but we had, you know, 5 or 6 quite simple shots in the last that we didn't get. And, you know, if it goes the other way, we could have easily won that game by 10 goals because I thought at halftime, you know, I think we were lucky to get those last 2 and we desperately needed those last 2 goals to keep us in touch. But I thought we were a really dominant team for most of that game, and then it probably got away from us in the, you know, towards the end of that second quarter. We managed to snag a couple back, but thereafter, you know, certainly in that last quarter, we just ran over them. And no doubt their injuries had a fair bit to do with, you know, the legs. But at the same time, and I know the media will love to, and the commentators would just loving running that kind of commentary around the game. But the reality of the fact was that, you know, Jaden Laverde kept Darling to 2 kicks for the game and took a couple of incredible marks in the last that were really pivotal in us keeping that lead. Dyson Heppel played the best game he's played in a fairly long time, I thought. You know, Parish and Mert were as prolific as they have been in the past month, but it was those wins around the ground. And even, you know, Josh Kennedy, he kicked a couple of good goals out of his arse, but a couple of good goals. And even then he was quiet. So it's those guys that didn't have an impact. Liam Ryan did absolutely nothing. He was just really well held. So that was for me where the game was won. It wasn't the injuries or anything like that. So I just thought it was quite a dominant performance by us, and it was dominant through the guts. And really, I thought the scoreline really flattered them in the end.
Lots of positives definitely to take out of the game. Damo, is there a person or something that you'd like to single out for the first positive to go with?
We're going positive, sir.
Yeah, we'll open positive, mate. We'll open the bank in a positive.
I got some negatives.
I'm sure you do.
I'm always a big fan of the negatives. But we'll start with the positives. I think the back six was really good. Riddler did really, really well on Flying Ryan. Laverde also very good. But I think Red Dog was really great. Loved it from him. Real standout. At BZT, he had some minor little hiccups, but he actually ended up playing all right.
Yeah,
he almost caught that bloke in the was it the second or third quarter?
Yeah, I've actually
got that little touch on him.
Archie,
yeah, I was like,
he forced a turnover, and then we ended up getting the ball back down, and Langford ended up kicking a goal when it was almost the end of that second quarter. So it was really, really, really crucial.
Managed to find some pace out of absolutely God knows where.
And I also thought Phillips was all right around the ground.
Phillips was great around the ground.
Really good marks. And it's actually crazy because I think we lost the hit outs by about 40, that we ended up only losing the clearances by 1, or we ended up winning the clearances by 1. So the midfield was really good. I thought everyone was pretty good. Only a few players had a couple of hiccups, but we're pretty consistent. We were really consistent for the whole 4 quarters. It's just a shame we were a little inaccurate at the start, and they were just 9 and 6, which is crazy. So we actually played, I think, pretty solid 4 quarters.
Yeah, it's Kyle Langford, the ruckman, elite quietly.
That was when we really started to get murdered. Whenever he went into the ruck, that was really concerning.
Yeah, no, look, the lack of a second ruckman did hurt us a lot when we needed it. I'll pick you up on the back 6 point there, Damo. So from the guys who are regular starters in our back 6 and play their week in, week out. So these are some of their kicking stats for the game. So Laverde had 10 kicks and went at 100%. Redmond had 9, went at 90. Heppel had 13 at 87. Stewart had 6 at 86. Hine had 14 at 82. And Ridley had 8 kicks at 80%. Like the core group, I know BZT was playing down there as well, but they're the core group of their week in, week out. When they're using it that well, it's always a good sign. And, so much of our game was built on us just rebounding the ball because we were losing it in the middle quite a fair bit. And it's a great sign when they're doing it. It probably shows that West Coast don't bring the pressure, but I think we've seen the last, few weeks and just this year that if sides don't bring the pressure against Essendon, we can cut you up. And we can.
Absolutely.
Which is a good sign going ahead because you're always going to catch teams on an off day. And, it's nice knowing that we have the ability to absolutely put a team to the sword. So, I was, pretty wrapped with that. You got a positive there for me, Ollie?
Yeah, if Damo shouted out the defenders, then I'll give a shout out to our forwards. I just think they're working really well together. I'll just start with Kale Hooker. I think as a veteran, he stood up in a few big moments, took a few big grabs. He's probably doing everything that he can right now to earn himself an extra year. I think he's putting together a really commendable year as a forward. Harry Jones, I don't think his impact can be measured purely on his stat line. I think, we could talk about him at lengths, but just the volume of his pressure acts and little things he can do, like bring the ball to ground. He's been immense in terms of our forward line functioning well. There's 2 guys who are match winners in their own right, Jake Stringer and AMT. Stringer had obviously a quiet first half, but when the game was in the balance, he produced 3 opportunist goals. Starting with that one on the right forward flank, was it the Jake Carlisle goal years ago where he kicked one from 50 meters out on a flank? Out in the west.
Yeah, he did.
It gave me shades of that. It gave me shades of that. Not that I want to be shouting out that guy, but it was a big game moment. He stood up, he kicked the goal, then he's kicked this beautiful snap around the body, and then he stood up and in a one-on-one contest, he's taken a strong mark and converted truly. So he was absolutely like, it was a match-winning performance. Like even though he was quiet in the first half, he put together a string of incredible acts to help get us over the line. AMT was awesome. I just want to chuck Perkins in there as well. I know he wasn't playing purely as a forward, but he did get a lot of his possessions forward of the ball. I think that was, probably vying with his Carlton game. I think that was just about his best game. Like he only had the 16 possessions, but his pressure acts and his movement around the ground was just phenomenal for someone his age.
Breaking tackles.
Yeah, the way he's able to...
And the sidestep.
Sidestep. Oh.
The sidestep, he keeps his feet. If he goes
he's tough.
He just bounces straight back up. So he's just a really classy mover.
And he's hot.
And
he looks so good when he does it.
He's so hot.
So he's looking incredible. I think there's no shortage of positives to pick from. So, I'd start with that, but could talk all day.
Well said. Well said. I'm going to go with one here. And you talk about match-winning performances, and I would almost say this guy was up there with one of our best, and that was our captain, Dyson Heppel. You said at the start, Mert, that was probably the best game he's played this year, and in recent memory as well. You said, I think, last week or the week before that he'd been a bit meek in game, but he was anything from that on the weekend. He's been criticised for his disposal. His disposal was good. Speed is always going to be a factor, but when you are smart and you position yourself right and you do the right things, he didn't get exposed. His body work in winning marks, I thought, was amazing, considering that West Coast, some of the best marking teams in the comp. Like he just time and time again just got guys under the ball, got them out of the way, took a good mark, brought people into it. He intercepted at time. There was a few times where he came across and just threw the fist in there. And I was like, when was the last time I saw this bloke do this? He's come so far from that injury. Like, I think we can easily not understand how bad what he did to his foot and his ankle. Like, some people might give up from there, but it's a long way for him to get back. And I feel like in the last couple of weeks we've seen glimpses on, but now I think he's finally fully confident back in his body. He knows what he can do. And I think he's loving that role as well. And he was beaming after the game. You could see that in the post-match interview. So I got to say, that's probably the biggest tick I've probably ever given Dyson Heppel as an Essendon player. What do you guys think of the skipper?
Yeah, he was awesome. Really, really good. I think that second half, he was so influential. And you did say at the start, he was that important in the second half of the game. He was influential. The body work on the intercept marks, so good. So very happy and just looking forward to how much more he can grow the more time he spends in that role.
Love it. Merty, you got a positive for me, mate?
Yeah, well, everyone else basically just said different, bunches of players on the ground. So there's not a whole lot to work with anymore. But
go off the ground. Go the truck. Go truck.
Well, given that we've gone forward and back, I might as well go midfield. I thought, there's a couple of points there. I think, obviously Parrish had another excellent game, and Mert, I thought, was really quite creative especially with his disposal by foot. Like there are just a couple of those kicks to Perkins in particular, a couple of those chip kicks. In particular, the one that set up his set shot on goal was just so smart. It was just really, really good. At the same time, this is kind of preempting the negatives. I was pretty disappointed in Andy McGrath's game at times because I saw him really labouring back a lot of the time, and some of the time it was quite early in quarters as well, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. But there's been a number of times this year where I've seen him, and it's basically just been off the back of maybe a fast break for us, and then he's really struggling to move at all, going back the other way. And I mean, for me, if you can't, if you don't have the fitness to be going, or you're feeling too cooked or whatever, to be going one way, then don't go that way. Make sure you're, coming back and you're covering the defence, because otherwise we're getting shown up. And I think was it I'm not sure who ended up kicking this goal, but One of the West Coast, one of those kind of wingers or high half-forward flankers, kicked a goal straight off a tap in their forward line.
Yeah.
And it was basically, and they showed it on the replay, it was basically just a product of Andy getting caught behind his man, not being goal side, and then being absolutely nowhere near him, like losing him in traffic, and then really quite an easy goal to West Coast. So I was pretty disappointed in Andy's game, but away from that, I think that tandem's working really quite well. So overwhelmingly, they were really good. And I think, Langford's one we probably haven't spoken about anywhere near enough, because he played his best game in a long time. And it wasn't just his work through the guts and in the middle, but it was his ability to transition forward, and also his ability, I think, to, really cover the ground and get everywhere. He was just so good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel where he left us last year, we were like, this guy's building and building. Like, last year was probably his biggest growth year we'd seen. And then I think the first sort of month and a bit of footy in 2021, I think a lot of Essendon fans were kind of like, what's happened to Kyle? Like, he really hasn't taken that extra step. And I know his role has changed quite a lot depending on who we've had in the side. And maybe that's affected him poorly, the fact that he's been pushed around a bit. But the last 2 weeks in particular, I think we've sort of gone, all right, this is the guy we were seeing last year who's starting to take that next step. And again, it's just awesome having a guy who, all right, we're down a bit of depth in the midfield. We need you to go into the guts. We need to play on the wing. We run. Alternatively, we need you to push forward to try and get on the end of it. And he did that. And what a great mark that he took, just top of the goal square to seal that goal. And when Kyle takes a mark inside 50, I'm very comfortable with him going back with a set shot. So
it was over Barras as well, that mark.
Yeah.
So no mean feat.
Yeah, exactly. And it's quite funny that, like, you see now with our 2 sort of sides of the wing, if it is Langford and Cox, like, obviously Cox is a giant, but Langford's, not short either. You got these 2 blokes who can push down the wing and potentially jump over the top of as Mert cracks his VB, over a small defender or a small wingman who might have been dragged back with them. I'm just loving it. I'm just loving Don's footy, boys. Don't know about you.
I've got another positive.
Go for it.
I actually think the game was really well officiated for a game,
which is
Perth.
bizarre.
Yeah, I agree.
There were a couple of times where the whistle blew, and I was like, "Oh yeah," and then they gave it to us, and I was like, "How did that happen?"
Yeah,
that being said, what about that free kick against Hindy in the last quarter, like in the last 5 or 10 minutes, where Hind tackled some bloke, he dropped the ball, and then pretty sure that was it. Like, and he clearly dropped the ball, and everyone, including the commentators, thought it was a holding the ball free kick to Essendon, and the umpire called him for holding the man.
Yeah,
that was one of
when they dropped the ball.
Yeah, that was a throw your remote through the TV moment.
Yeah, it was.
I had to go for a walk, so I didn't belt someone in the room.
It was quite a surprise seeing a West Coast player getting paid deliberate at Optus Stadium when Dom Sheed kicked that ball on the wing and they blow the whistle for deliberate. I was there going.
Well, apparently, Dean Margetts actually has been taken off West Coast games previously.
Oh, really?
His wife works at the club, so like it's a known fact that he's a West Coast supporter, and I actually saw a stat of all the free kicks that have been paid against us, and we're something like, on average in West Coast games that he's officiated, we're -7 as an average, which I think is quite, like, that's a significant amount. It's not plus or minus like 2 or 3, which is fine at 7. So
he must have known about that stat because he was definitely helping us out a bit. There was one time where Stewart had the one-on-one with Darling and someone else had the one-on-one with Kennedy, and they were both hugging each other and turning.
That's
right.
Blew
the whistle.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
And I was like, oh, and Stewart ended up getting the free.
Yeah, Laverde pulled Darling down, but then Kennedy got Stimmy. Perfect.
We never get those. I've never seen one of those paid to a backman before. I couldn't believe it. So we'll take that one.
Yeah,
Margetts was also the umpire who a couple of years ago when we beat them, he what was the free kick count was something like 16-34 to them. So that was very much what I'd prepared myself and my family for on Saturday night, but fortunately enough, didn't get there.
Yeah, well said. What do you guys think of Alec Wardman kicking the sealer against his old side?
Actually made me tear up a bit, to be honest, on the replay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit emotional.
I mean, it doesn't take much on a Sunday, but
and even better to think it against his brother as well.
Yeah,
tip rat.
We've definitely got the better looking of the two brothers. Jake's got a pretty rough looking head on him.
For a bloke who looks rough as guts, he's not very tough.
No.
I've never seen him win his own ball.
No, he just goes the cheapie on Zach Mert after he's kicked it, and then starts arcing up to Mert, telling him to stop. It's like, bro, you just blindsided him,
mate. He's 0 contested possessions for the year, mate.
Is he
back in the twos after this?
Apart from his goal.
Let's double check that. Let's
that goal kick. No, he won't be.
That goal he kicked was
that goal killed me.
Yeah.
Actually, that's another negative. To be honest, when are we starting on negatives?
Yeah, let's do it. I think. I mean, well, quickly. Has anyone got any more positives we want to mention? I mean, we've kind of cut.
No, let's blast some people.
Yeah, Truck's a lord. We'll just finish on that. Love Truck. All right, who do you want to blast, Mert? You can lead us off.
Yeah, I'll start. I thought our tackling in general, and I mean, it's been a hallmark of our game when we've been playing well this year, but I thought our tackling in general was really quite poor. It was a lot of those kind of arm tackles, and the reason it was brought to my mind was just talking about that goal, which was really just Ridley not being able to tackle the bloke properly, and like didn't drive in his shoulder. It was nothing that the coach should have you do as a tackler. And it just seems like a lot of the time we kind of go back to this softer kind of tentative tackling approach. So, yeah, I think it's definitely something to work on. If we're going to continue to try and be this blue-collar team, which I think we've done quite well this year, then, yeah, we need to improve on those things.
I'll just pick out a point. I know we're in the negatives, but I picked a point. Ultimate Damo, other Damo, mentioned in our thread, Ridley playing on these small forwards, the jumping forwards. I quite like that move. I thought he played really good on Flying Ryan. I said it in our thread, like it's got a bit of old Fletcher about it when Fletcher would go up against the best small forwards in the comp. And now that we've kind of got more options down there now with what Laverde and Stewart are bringing, I really like that he's now the man to go to it, and it frees up Redmond to do his rebounding work, which I think we've seen has worked really well. So,
and we saw what happened to Redmond last year as well when he was being made to play that kind of lockdown on the smalls role. Like he got killed against Cameron, Brisbane last year, and that kind of role for him worried me. So I think Ridley's a great one for that.
Yeah, well said. Who wants to tip on something or somebody?
Yeah, I got one. Just the fact that we conceded 5 unanswered goals in that second term. So obviously it's the big news story is that we were ultimately able to turn it around and come back with the win. But I think for our sides, for the next big improvement item is for us just to not concede bulk unanswered goals, which has been a theme of the games that we tend to lose this year. The ones where we cough up big leads and the ones that we get blown out of. So I just need to work out a way, if it's 2 on the trot, have those defenders, the midfielders push back and just halt the flow of play. But yeah, that's something to work on.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I mean, it's a common thing in most of the teams around the comp at the moment is that it's pretty much outside of the top 4 teams. They're the only ones who sort of really don't do it. Like a lot of teams are very susceptible to that run. And, it is sort of the way the game has been played ever since the 666 has come in, that you can be really exposed to just, rampant goals going against you. So yeah, I tend to agree. It's a small negative for me. And like, I know we spoke about it briefly, but I mean, I don't like us not having a proper backup ruck. And I know it's unfortunate that Peter Wright went down, but I just feel like we had the potential to really, really lose the game in the times where Langford was in the ruck. And there are times that it worked out where like Nick Nat's taps weren't great. And then we got the advantage by just having extra guys there. But I feel like you're really playing with fire, especially when you're coming with someone who can be as dominant in that and someone who was that dominant.
I think we had to put Nick Cox in the ruck and we did that in the last quarter, and he was actually quite successful at it.
How good was his tackle when he grabbed him? I was like, oh no, Nick Nat's going to flatten him, and he just held on to him.
That's one of the best parts of his game, to be honest. That's one of my favourite parts, is that he actually tackles and makes them feel it. He's got that rough edge as well.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect it for a guy who's skin and bones. Damo, I know you're eagerly sitting there waiting to rip on somebody or something, so I'll throw to you, mate. Who you got? You're muted, mate. Unmute yourself. What have you done?
Keep him on mute almost.
There he is. All right. Now you're back now. Go.
I don't actually have too many negatives.
Okay.
A surprise. But look, just to the listeners, I hate ripping into this bloke, but I think he had some pretty bad moments in the game, which was Zaharakis. There was a moment where he was running through the middle of the ground and we were on the fast break and he just rode a tackle, got turned over, and we conceded a goal.
It was so dumb.
There was one where Phillips shouldn't have given it to him, but there was one where he just got caught.
Yeah, and there was another time where
players on as well,
and he gave it back to Phillips, who was completely under pressure. And when we turned it over, that was holding the ball. And then he had that snap at goal, 25 meters out. Looked like he kicked a brick. It went about 10 meters. I couldn't believe it. And it was such a crucial part of the game. So
yeah. Normally,
he had some bad moments and he's starting to look a bit slow. But, I mean, previous week he had a really, really great game. So,
yeah, I tend to agree.
I'm really not too sure, like, if we were healthy, whether you ride it out, see if he can bring back that consistency or if we do drop him, because, you know, sometimes that could have a really negative effect on a player's confidence. So, I think that was a bit of a negative.
I think he goes out for Shield.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you look at Shield and Caldwell would probably, if fit, be walk-up starts to get back into the team.
Yeah.
I just don't know if at this stage of his career that he's much more than a sort of fringe 22 player, and he's the beneficiary of a couple of injuries at the moment. But, yeah, once those guys come back, I don't know if he stays in the team.
Yeah, I think personally, like, I believe that this will be David's last year. Considering where we're heading as a club, and we are still, you know, rejuvenating, and I would say we're likely to go to the draft again this year, although it won't be the hand that we had previously. I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't expect us to be, you know, wanting David to go around again. Like, he's a legend of the club. He's done amazing things. We thank him for everything he's done, but, you know, this is the end. You know, sadly it ends.
BNF winner.
He's a BNF winner. You know, he's got so many great highlights. You know, sadly he's become the whipping boy in, you know, final years. But you know, he stuck that through the club through some shit times. But you know, I do think this is probably his last year. You muted yourself again, Numpty. What have you done? What have you done? He's muted himself. I don't know why you're speaking.
He's off.
This is great podcasting. I'm not even going to cut this out. I'm just going to leave this in.
Just give us signals.
Give us hand signals. All right. Well, Damo's out. So if anyone else has something they want to say,
best part of the podcast.
Oh, there we go. Now he's back. What were you saying?
I don't know what's going on, but does Zaharakis hold any trade value to potentially a team who's at?
Absolutely not.
No. So he's out of
maybe Collingwood.
Look, yeah, maybe Collingwood, but look, he's out of contract and he's an unrestricted free agent. So I don't think he has value, sadly. You know, maybe a side into redevelopment might take him for a year, like
maybe a team that wants to improve their hotness.
Yeah, look, he's a good-looking boy, so maybe he can help out a bunch of
great-looking guy.
Melbourne. Has anyone else got another? Actually, Mert, I know you want to talk about the commentators, so I'm just going to throw to you and just kind of let you roll, and then we'll go to a break after that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is probably an easy pick for Dog of the Week, but to be honest, I feel like I'd kind of get castigated if I made my Dog of the Week people who can't actually speak or think. So you're not supposed to do that these days, are you, Rob? So
no.
I just thought the commentary was remarkably bad. as we all know. But by God, David King, I think in particular, was otherworldly. I don't know. Do you have the clip there, Rob?
I've got the shortened clip. Do we play this bit?
You can play that bit
I'll
to
play
start
it.
me off.
All right, here we go.
A lot of games it does, but smarter and smarter wins you more.
Harder and harder wins you games. Smarter and smarter wins you more.
So I'll just go on to finish off that quote that he, and this was after I think West Coast had kicked the goal in, I think, the second quarter. Harder and harder beats smarter and smarter. And sometimes you've just got to hold a defender back. It's surge mentality now. It's just get the ball forward at all costs. So out the back here, look at all the space. Is that Heppel holding back or is it Ridley? But just look at the space and then it's gone. It's just one disposal and you're beaten. That was one, and I was like, dude, I was watching the replay and I was like, my God, this guy's actually paid to speak and he can't. And then there was another one. And this one was great. And if anyone gets a chance to watch a replay, it's great in terms of the actual play, but the commentary is just so much better. And it's after Kale Hooker takes it out of the ruck, basically, against Nat Nui, pulls his pants down, kicks it forward, Stringer takes the mark, kicks his third goal. And David King surmises, it's not about who you know, it's what you know. And we always go through stages like this where you know Hooker is going to try and get a quick kick. So there's a whole heap of decisions you've got to make. It's against Nick Nat Nui. So it's by surprise. So Nick's not expecting it, but he knew it was coming.
What? I don't know what David King's been smoking, but he's got some riddles down pat.
The musings of a fucking idiot.
Yeah. I'll make a point on the commentary. One thing that does irritate me is that in a game like that, what happened was there was one commentator and a banjo writer at the game. So Adam Papalia, who works with Fox, and I've spoken to Adam before in a previous podcast I used to do about soccer. We speak a lot. Good bloke. I really like Adam. And then you got Matthew Pavlich, who was basically the banjo writer, who basically spoke once the entire game, or twice actually, when two guys got injured. But then the rest of the guys are at the Fox Footy studio. Now, I can understand why you wouldn't have people in the northern states, the non-footballing states, but how does Fox Footy not have 4 people in Perth who can commentate the game? Like, it is a footballing state. They love the game to death. There are so many people there who would be on radio or whatever. How does Fox Footy not have the ability to get 4 people who are in WA to do the game, so we don't have to cop 7 minutes of the Cox family lineage story by Eddie Maguire? And it was great. Like, I really enjoyed him talking about the Cox family, but like, you've got guys in the studio and then you've got guys at the ground. So it was just this awkward thing where the guys in the studio had their own gags going, and then you've got the poor bloke sitting at the ground, probably not knowing what's going on. So
how are you going to maintain that consistency of excellence across, different, just getting in new people though, Rob?
I don't know.
I mean, in fairness,
because they're cheap. That's why. It's because they're cheap.
Yeah.
That's because Fox.
I think for me, the commentary routinely is just absolutely abhorrent. Like the quality of commentary is terrible. And it could be Friday night listening to Brian Taylor trying to get Richo into the stands and just like completely ignoring the footy that's going on and just continually trying to get Richo in the stands and going off on his own tangents. Or it could be, any of the Fox Footy games. Like, it's all just absolute rubbish.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. Boys, any more negatives? Otherwise, we'll go to a break and then we'll come back with a bit of Ask The Sash.
Negative doubt.
Everyone's good. All right, let's take a quick breather and we'll come back with Ask The Sash after this. Remember that today's show is brought to you by Speaking Finance. If you'd like to be in the market to win a $150 voucher to the Bomber Shop, get onto the Speaking Finance Facebook page, comment your answers to the most recent post, tag 2 mates, and follow the page. That's Speaking Finance. You'll find a link to their page on our show post on Facebook, and I'll be resharing it again tomorrow. But speakingfinance.com.au or the Speaking Finance Facebook page if you'd like to win a voucher to the Bomber Shop. All righty, let's get back into it, boys. We are doing a bit of Ask The Sash. Love it when the faithful give us some questions. These are always good. This is an interesting topic. A lot of people have been talking about this. So I just went to one question who basically summarized a lot of different players. But Tim White said, If Shield, Caldwell, Smith, Hurley, and Draper are to return to the match day team, who would they replace and why? Now, we'll go to a couple of them. So Draper's an interesting one. So he played with Carlton's reserves, I believe, or the VFL side over the weekend purely to get some minutes. I don't expect him to – look, I don't expect him to play against Richmond, to be honest. I'd prefer us to play Phillips. Like, I'm happy for Drapers to have a couple of more sort of managed minutes. We have the bye and then come back after then. But obviously, in the long term, he'll take Phillips' spot at some point, permanently, or whether they may do a duo together. Quickly on that, would you guys be opposed to a Draper-Phillips combo if Peter Wright is injured?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think I'm opposed to it as well.
I think it's too tall if you got Waterman and Paco both in the same forward line. Not also that they're particularly tall.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're two pure ruckmen. Like, not one isn't a pinch hitting ruckman who's a natural forward. I think they're both vying for each other's minutes, which I think is the difference.
I feel like Phillips has shown he can play forward, and he's actually seems like a really good shot on goal. But I think you're right, Ollie, because if you're playing a number of guys that size or thereabouts in the forward line, then you lose a lot the other way. So,
Hurley,
I'd have Draper straight in, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, look, when he's ready to come back in, I think he'll come back in. So, I just don't think it's this week.
So where did he play, Rob?
Yeah.
So Carlton's reserves, who played in Sydney, I believe, in New South Wales. So he basically flew up there, and similar to last year, because of the hub situation, a lot of teams didn't have full squads. So you'd often see these times where like Essendon and the Bulldogs reserves would play against the North and Hawthorn reserves or whoever, just so they could field, play some minutes. So that's what he did.
Did anyone else go? Did the lot go?
I'm not sure if Reedy went. I'll need to confirm that information. But yeah, I believe he left Melbourne. I'm pretty certain he did, unless he's still sick. But he was training, so I'm pretty sure he's gone.
Yeah, he was due to play VFL.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll get back to Tim's question. So Hurley was the other one. Look, I don't think we'll see Michael Hurley this year, considering, how hard it's been. Whether we do see him back at all, I'm not sure, but he is contracted to play again next year. So, the club will give him the opportunity. He's a legend of the club. We love him to bits, so we're not going to turn our back on him. Smith, Caldwell, and Shield's an interesting one. And I'm going to put it to you guys that Shield obviously will be in the team when he's fully fit, as Devon Smith will be as well. And how that'll happen is they'll probably push out a few guys. Potentially an Alec Waterman might get pushed out. Maybe even Guelphy might get pushed out, depending. I'm going to put it on the agenda that of the sample size we've seen and where some of our current midfielders are at, I don't think Jai Caldwell's a walk-up start anymore. I think some of our guys have been doing that well in the middle, and he didn't do enough in those first few games for me to say he's a walk-up start. Like, I think he would have to earn his stripes, to be honest. So I'm not sure what your opinion is. I know he's your boy, Ollie. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think anyone should be a walk-up start in the team. I think you've got to earn it. But I think I've seen enough of Jai to know that when he is fit, that he'll be doing everything that he can to be in that 22. He's hugely internally rated. When he was at GWS, they had massive tickets on him. He was seen to be a first-round pick that slipped. And then in the 2 years that they had him, internally, they thought that he actually increased his value. And that's why they were playing so difficult at the trade table. So I've got full faith that Jai, once fit, will be in our team. But, yeah, he's going to have to earn it. And I think that'll just be done on the training track. But I don't see an issue with him coming in. Devon is an interesting one. I think his best and his worst are very far apart. When fit and when playing his best, I think he's an absolute starter. And he's a huge impact player, huge high-pressure player, really fits into our mould.
Yeah.
It's those games where he's, chasing kicks, he's errant with his disposal that can really cost us as a team. So I think he's going to be one who will, I think he's still going to feature in our best 22, but there's going to be an asterisk next to him, which is sort of like you're on high alert. There'll be players vying for his position, as there will, with Jai's position. But I think he's one that could find himself under pressure for his spot. But I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the current 22 of the guys who probably could pitch out, obviously we spoke about Zaharakis. He's probably one who might get squeezed out. As much as I love Waterman, I think he's also one who gets squeezed out because I think what would happen is, if a Schiller or Caldwell was to come back in to get more midfield minutes, Langford would probably end up going forward. And I think most of us would take Langford over Waters. I think that's just the case. So that's us. That one. We'll get to the next one. We'll keep flying through them. MJ Garrett said, when and where does Ambrose get his opportunity in this team? For me, MJ, that is if some of our key forwards get injured and we need someone to come in because he's not playing defense anymore. And unless we're absolutely desperate, we'll send him back there. But if Hooksy goes down, if Jonesy goes down, or both, go down, you'll see Ambrose play forward. But until that happens, I don't think he's getting a game right now. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not too sure because I can definitely see him still playing as a defender, but obviously playing as a forward in the VFL. I think he could change with a Waterman, to be honest. I think he can sort of play at that same role. I know some of us think like Ambrose is a big boy, but I think he's not necessarily a key position player too much as well. So yeah, look, it's hard to crack into this team at the moment, and especially with the role he has. But I would love to see him in there at some stage and see how he goes.
Nice one. Next one's from Milligram 94. Says, beside Parrish and Mert, is Kale Hooker our most important player this year? I'll ask you that one, Merty. What do you reckon?
I reckon Nick Hines almost our next most important player this year.
Okay.
Kale is very important, but I think Kale's also beneficiary isn't the right word, but he's definitely, one of a number of key forwards now, and they're all playing off each other. We find that if Kale had a fantastic game on the weekend, but he's been a little bit quieter since, he started off in such explosive fashion. And I'm finding if he's not standing up, then there's always someone else that's standing up in that forward line at the moment. So I'm not sure he's necessarily our most, or right up there, just purely because there's a number of guys who can fill his spot. And that's probably the same can probably be said for a number of guys in our back line. Whereas Hindy, I've got no idea what we do if Nick Hine goes down.
Well said. Hindy has been a complete revelation. I do tend to agree. Next one is from PK1SS. Says, should we still go after Dunkley? Short answer from me, no. Long answer, also no. So that's mine.
Yes.
I don't think we need to now that we've got Parrish kicking, and then we've also still got Caldwell to come in. But also, I believe he is a big chance of re-signing within the next 2 weeks at the Dogs, is something that I heard as well. So looks like he's enjoying his time at the top of the ladder, or second on the ladder.
Is he forgetting that he's not going to get a game?
I think yes, just to throw a curveball in the mix, but only for the right price. And
2 first-round picks is not it.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, but we were all in agreement at the time that coughing up the Bulldogs' asking price of 2 first picks just simply wasn't something we could do. And then now you look at it and imagine parting ways with Nick Cox and Archie Perkins for him to be playing in that team. I think if it was a 1 first-round pick price, then I think he's worth it. And I think still having a bigger bodied midfielder is something that down the track is probably, a position that we need to fill, but only for the right price.
Fair enough.
I kind of want to go to the draft now after you said that. Like one first round pick all of a sudden seems so much more valuable than it's been to us in recent years.
But I reel off some names to temper you. Elliot Kavanagh, Scott Gumbleton.
Kefler Bradley. Poor Elliot Kavanagh.
Leroy Jetta.
Was Leroy a first rounder?
I think he was pretty close
to
it.
It was about like a tick 18 or something.
Yeah, well.
End of first round.
Next one's from Tom Bryan. He said, "Can someone ask Adam Sard if he's still happy with this trade?" Hashtag poor man's Nick Hyde.
Good question, Tom.
Gee, how good at Carlton? Not good
So
at all.
good.
It's beautiful watching.
Last night was just heaven.
Yeah. The Grenache hour watching the Swannies.
It's also great to see the ladder positions of Collingwood and Hawthorn right now.
Oh, it's good. And even just sides who thought they were good, like St Kilda, and they're just no good. And we're in a rebuild, and
St Kilda aren't that bad though. Like they're not that far off.
Nah, they're must.
They're like one game out of the 8.
Yeah, they're one game out of the 8, but they're still,
shit as that being.
They're still must.
They've looked terrible when they've played.
Yeah. But they're no good.
One game out of the 8 with a percentage of 76.4. Like that.
So they're 2 games out of the 8.
Fundamental issues.
Yeah. They got a lot going on. Next one's from Essendon Central. Says, under Ben Ratton, are we due for a successful run for top 4 premiership or just the bottom half of the table? I'm a believer. I believe we're going to head in the right direction the next few years. It probably won't
100%.
But I think everyone's on board that, Truck is driving us to success. So I think everyone's pretty happy. Anyone disagree?
No, he's dragged me back in very quickly.
Yeah. Big on Truck. Luke Brooks. Sorry, Luke. This one caused a bit of an issue on the page, so I had to throw it in. Should Dyson Heppel hand over the captaincy next year, assuming he stays, to Zach Merritt? New team, new coach, new game style, new captain, a refreshed, rejuvenated team. If you asked me this at the very start of the year, Luke, I probably would have said I agree with you, and I think maybe that Heps will be ready to part. But I don't know. The last few weeks, I've started to think that maybe Heps has still got more captaincy life in him, and I don't know. I don't know if Zach Merritt wants to be captain. I mean, he's obviously in the leadership group at the moment, basically advice. But if he wants to take over,
I reckon he would.
Yeah, you reckon he will?
I'd give it to Paco, to be honest. I'd take it off Heppel and give it to Paco. Give him the captaincy.
Just give him.
Just stop dragging us along. I don't want this long journey for Paco to become captain and then eventually a premiership winning captain. Just give him the bloody captaincy. Cut the shit. We all know how this story ends.
We do. What do you, Ollie, Damo? What do you think about?
I think he should hold on to it at least for next year, and he can sort of we don't know if Merritt's staying, and as obviously if he does, will he be a good leader? You're not too sure. I think Heppel, we've got a very young list, and they need someone with some really good advice to teach them throughout that. And have a look at Trent Cotchin stuck through it, and now he's a great leader of the club, so of the AFL. So look, I'd stand by Heppel for one more year, just because I think it is quite a tolling role being the captain. There's a lot of work that they need to do behind doors, and that a lot of us don't see off the field. And yeah, I'd just stick with him, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember which. God, it was, one of the programs, one of the AFL programs, they were talking about how Heppel is just always positive in the media, like how he's very rarely negative. Like, I mean, there might be a couple of times the last couple of years where, like, on the Essendon website, he came out being like, "Oh, we're not happy with the performance," but generally, he's always been really positive. And I think with young guys, that can be quite a good thing, is that they've got someone who's kind of just bringing them the positivity, at least from a captain's sense, especially if maybe, the coaches are the ones who are really driving, the hard taskmasters. So, look, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Damon. I think for next year, you can keep him, and then, let's have the same discussion next year. We'll see where we're at. If things are going amazingly well, we probably won't speak about it, but if things aren't, then maybe, it's on the agenda. But that's where I'm at. This is a real important one. Pat De La Hoya says, do you guys think that real chickens are used in chicken salt?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know how chicken salt's made, Ollie?
Yes. Like grounding the chooks.
Grounding the chooks.
Everyone does that.
Yeah.
I thought it was all chook balls. They got balls, yeah?
I think that's a rooster, but yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why isn't it called rooster salt? That might be something else. that's all we've got. I mean, there's a few other questions, but I don't really want to read them all. Boys, have you got any questions or anything you want to bring up before we wrap up for an evening?
Is there a substantially different flavour from roosters to chickens?
Say it again.
Is there a substantially different flavour from roosters to chickens? Or do they just market rooster as chicken?
I don't think they eat roosters, to be honest. I think roosters are just kind of kept for the breeding. If you're a farmer or you're working,
why is Red Rooster called Red Rooster then?
Yep.
You got me there.
Where is the Red Rooster?
That's a good question.
What is the Red Rooster?
Maybe I'll have Red Rooster for dinner. I don't know. That is a good question.
Chicken crimpies.
Yeah, chicken crimpies are good. They are the. I'm going to throw it out there. I reckon they're my favorite shape. I can eat better than pizza and barbecue.
Yeah.
Do you know Range Rovers spontaneously combust?
Really?
I got a real problem. Yeah, they're being recalled.
Really? Range Rovers. Well, luckily I can't afford a Range Rover, so that's not a problem in my life. I'm not sure about.
Do you know Nick Cox is a unicorn?
I did know Nick Cox is a unicorn. And how good was that? The drawing, the young lad, Footy Illustrated.
Well, that was unreal.
The evolution of Peter Wright into the 7-seater. I'm just waiting for
I've got a feeling he's going to keep evolving into something absolutely monstrous. He's going to be some stage he might be an F1, and at other stages he might be a massive, I don't know, bus or something. He might be a 40-seater.
40-seater.
7-seater into 1-seater into 40-seater.
Off he goes. Yeah, I'm hanging out for the day. There's like a post-match or like a press match, and like Truck or like Dyson Heppel just goes, 7-seater is going to be back in the side. Like that's what I'm hanging out for.
I actually think it's going to happen soon.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah. I'm hanging out to have a beer with Paco at the BNF.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good.
All right, Coxie.
And Coxie enjoys a little fat lamb by all the reports. Little Coxie. All right, let's wrap it up there for a Monday, boys. Thank you for joining me. It is great to speak to you all. It's great to be on the winning list. Ollie, final thoughts?
Bugger the Tigers. Bring on Optus Stadium, baby.
Nice one. The new fortress. Damo, final thoughts?
I reckon we'll beat the Tigers, and I think we'll beat them pretty convincingly.
Yeah.
So that's my final thoughts.
Nice one. Merty, final thoughts?
Yeah. David King should just stick to it. He'll get there.
He'll get there.
You can do it, Kingy.
You can do it, Kingy. We're all behind you. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to our premium sponsors, and of course, thanks to our show sponsor, also premium subscribers, I should have said, and our show sponsor, Speaking Finance. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Go Dons.
Thanks to VB.
We'll see you Thursday. See ya.
VB.
Oh, good stuff, boys. Thanks for that.
Wait, Rob, is the recording the four of us or just one of us?
4 of you.
Because Mert did a coach.